Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Copy Corner. I'm your host, Terry Schilling. I say co-host, and you guys are used to having Dan Marzullo next to me, but a few Copy Corner episodes coming up. We're bringing on some guest hosts, and today, very happy to have Allea Grummert, live from Lincoln, Nebraska. That's terrible. No, that just puts shame where you're from. Sorry about that.
It's a downgrade.
Yeah. Don't mean that at all. We're both Midwesterners, so we were chatting on that before we went live, and there's already that, pleasant vibe between Allea and I. But Allea, I'm so happy to have you on the show today because we're going to be talking a lot about email copywriting, subject line formulas, talking a little bit about your origin story. But yes, you can start that. So say, give a little introduction, better than I just did, of yourself, but happy to have you here.
You did great. Like you said, I'm Allea Grummert. I'm an conversion copywriter, email marketing strategist. I work primarily with bloggers, and I focus on welcome and nurture sequences to help get their products and blog content in front of their audiences, to build brand loyalty, traffic back to their site, and optimize for revenue.
Excellent. Awesome.
All that jazz.
Love that. All that jazz. How did you, let's just go right into it. We're going to cover a lot of topics today, and just real quick, some starters for the show. We do this live. We're in the Facebook group, the Copy link, and on YouTube, but a lot of people will be listening from the podcast, so welcome. I'm happy to have you guys here. And if you're watching live and have any questions, feel free to chime in. We'll answer those as we go along. So say hello as well. But Allea, you mentioned you're helping a lot of the blogger scene right now. But what were you doing before you got into conversion copywriting? It seems like everybody's journey, going into it, it's not really what they intended to do.
Yeah, and mine was littered with insecurities. So
oh man,
I don't know how many people's aren't. I never went into it. I never went into it being like, I'm going to be a writer someday. In fact, so my background, I have a degree in advertising and PR. And I have a degree in history because I'm a bit of a nerd and I just like sitting through lecture, but also lots of writing, just very different writing.
Yeah, interesting.
Like a thesis, and then also writing like a podcast script or, commercial script. But I worked for an ad agency briefly in college, part-time. And I remember writing up Twitter, like status updates for a brand. And first of all, like to have to sit down and write 20 of those, knowing that they're going to live for 20 seconds, makes me want to cry. The life span of a tweet is like non-existent. But I remember writing that or blog posts, and my boss would write in red pen, just AWK, awk. And I'm like, so I'm not a writer? Is that what you're saying? Like, just awkward. And I remember asking her for like actual feedback. She was like, I don't know, it's just awkward. I'm like, okay. Moving on with my life. So that was in college. And then I actually worked at a video production company after school. After college. And I remember my boss there, because I was like afraid to write. Like I was so nervous. And she's like, just write like how you write on your blog. My Tumblr, like not even blog. This is like, I just have to share my feelings kind of stuff. Like it still exists, but we're going to keep that URL tucked away in my heart.
Oh my God. Sidebar. I just got an email from Tumblr of like, you're doing so just 8 years old. I'm not going to say the name of it, but it's just like, oh my God, it's still out there. I remember writing that like on the metro train, like to like commuting to my agency job, and just wanted to do some more writing. That's good old Tumblr. That's funny.
Yeah. Well, and I still write like a birthday reflection post and like a New Year's post because my birthday's in June. I kind of do that a couple times a year, but it's a completely different type of prose, and I really just enjoy it. And because that's the historian in me. I'm like, must keep a record of life and like highlights and lowlights. Must be honest with myself. I submit myself to that kind of, I don't know. Yeah. Most people don't do that. But so my boss at the time was like, just write like how you write on there. And it really freed up so much. And she was so kind with her feedback because she wasn't a writer either. She was a video production producer. And so that kind of opened that up. Then I've always been really into budgeting. This is going to connect. I became a personal finance blogger called AskAllea.com. No longer exists, but RIP. That was where it all started. And then I got into the money blogging space. And then like a couple years later, I'd listened to one too many podcasts on how you can start your own business. And I was like, guess I'm going to try.
There you go.
So I went part-time at the video production company. My bosses were super sweet. I was part-time there for 1.5 years while I kind of figured out, do I want to be an OPM? Do I want to do writing? Like, what is it? And I wasn't like, I'm going to be a writer. But what happened was a lot of people struggle with email marketing because it's technical and it's complex. So I actually started out being like an email marketing tech like implementer.
Okay.
And then I took Val Geisler's incubator. So
Awesome.
I started my business like August. She launched like a webinar about it like in October for $75. And then she was like, pitch the incubator. And I was like, yep, gonna do it. So I invested all of this money and I got to, just be trained under her for 4 months. And it was really interesting because in that process, a lot of the people in the incubator were like e-com, SaaS, like that's the kind of emails I wanted to do. And I'm over here being like, but I like want to help bloggers. And everyone was like, that doesn't make sense to me. And I was like, it does make sense to me, but I have zero confidence. So like for 6 months, the first half of like 2019, I was like, but can you make a living doing that? Well, I also knew from being in the finance space, like I went to a conference every year, that there were these bloggers who've been creating content 5, 10, 15 years and have not optimized their content for email. So like they have all this wonderful content that new subscribers would love to know about, but they don't find out about it. And so for me, it was just like, we need to connect the dots here. And then that's how I got into blogging. And then I was on the Food Blogger Pro podcast in like late 2019. And now like half my clients are in finance or food blogging. So it's pretty different, but
yeah, that's so interesting. And for a lot of the other freelance writers, who watch this, or just aspiring freelancers, can you talk a little bit about that transition to like knowing what this niche is going to be? I want to reach out to bloggers, and how you started marketing that and getting clients, because it seems like a little bit of reaching out, doing podcast, but what was your organized chaos strategy if you had one?
Yeah. At the time, like I wasn't on podcasts. I didn't have a website for my business for the first year. Like the whole time I was going through the incubator with Val. And I should say that that's the season where I learned that actually I am a writer. Like I can communicate as I stutter.
That's why we're writers.
Right. And like that was my first draft. So so that's where I kind of developed all of those skills. And I actually met with a business coach who helped me really refine my own packages. And I have 2, and that made it really easy to sell. So getting out of the mindset that like everything has to be custom was for starters. Like I get to control the process. I need it to be something that is like, I can calculate it. I can know how many weeks something will take. I can know the steps it'll take. That's been really helpful as I've grown my team. I have a team of 4 now in like varying capacities, which is bonkers to me. I just started 3 years ago. And so, I think having my niche and sticking with it and just saying like, this is who I serve. If you're not them, I don't need to like bend over backwards to make it work for you. I don't need to learn how to write website copy. I don't like, so part of it is like having that boundary, but also knowing like, if you need to fill your core, if you need to fill your bucket and make money, you can do that, but just like, don't make that your long-term thing. Kind of say. So for me, like I have my audit, which is like basically a paid proposal. Like I get to go in and look at everything and say, this is what I would change. And I give them really specific feedback. And I always tell them like, you can take that and run with it and apply it yourself. But like 95% of the people who take the audit sign up for the next service, which is where I actually help them with like audience research, content strategy, all the copywriting, copy editing. And then I set it up for them in their platform, turn it on and everything. Like,
oh, that's so huge for people. Yeah.
Well, I tried doing an intensive that was like, I'll give you the ideas or like, and then I'll set it up for you or whatever. And like, 3 out of the 4 people when I was testing out that product came back to me and they were like, can you just do it all? And so now I've learned it's not even a good service, because if it ends up not like meeting the actual need of the people, I'm not going to just like force this half service on people either. Just like to save them money. Like if anything, I can say, actually, it could save you money, but it's going to be harder for you to execute on it. So, which is why my company's called Duet, because it sounds like do it. And I'm always a person who's like, get this stuff done. Like, stop daydreaming. Pen to paper. Make it happen.
Yeah, exactly. That's so cool. Like 3 years now, and now you're doing a lot, because like we've connected on Twitter, been seeing what you're doing. Recently saw that you were a presenter at FinCon, and see that you're doing a lot with email marketing. And then we reached out to have you come and guest host on the show. So it's just a cool story, especially like I mentioned, a lot of aspiring freelancers out there of just kind of like owning in on a niche and and just continuing to market yourself and grow that inbound marketing, whether that's just
Mhm.
creating content and reaching out to other
Yeah.
people.
Well,
And
and I guess I
go
didn't
ahead.
answer that side of your question, but yeah, a lot
It's
of it
okay.
was like hopping on chit chats with people in the
Yeah.
community and just saying like, I know that you might not be of service to this, but do you know of anybody who is, or can you send them my way? It
Yeah.
was attending these conferences. Like I met with my business coach for the first time in July, nailed down my services and my elevator pitch, went to FinCon in that like September, and
Hmm.
I think I got 7 clients out of it. Like I was just went crazy booked out because I would just go to all the meetups and I would just have my spiel and people be like, "Oh, I've been wanting to do that." Like
Yeah.
these are people who've been doing this long enough. Like they're not going to sit through a webinar. They're not going to go through your funnel. They just want to meet someone and say like, "I think I can trust you to do this."
Yeah.
And I will pay you to just get it off my plate. And
Yeah.
so that's all it was. It was like old school sales. Like get their business card, give them yours and follow up with them,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
was pretty powerful.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just gonna go on about too, like with niching down, how you found like conversion email copywriting, if you will, for bloggers. I feel like there's just different types of niches. Like some people are like, oh, I want to work in real estate, or I want to work in finance. But I think like the types of writing too is such an important niche too. Like you can be an email copywriter and work with multiple industries. I feel
Mhm,
like as long as like you have this process of researching and understanding the audience or the audience's goals and what the client
mhm.
goals are, I feel like you can so easily translate your skill set to help a variety of clients. I think a
Yeah.
lot of people get caught up on, well, I need to narrow down my niche of like who I want to work with. But think about, I just like to focus more on the what, like what you're going to do. Like I do conversion copywriting and it works with a lot of websites and email, at
Mhm.
this point for me. So
Yeah.
that's really the bulk of what I do. And it's funny you pick your services. I feel like that's something I'm still need to focus more on is like I have my website copy services like that, like I feel like pretty well down, but the email copywriting side is something I've been exploring and being fortunate enough to get some opportunities, whether it's consulting, working with larger companies to like see what their welcome series are,
Yeah.
improving it, meeting people one on one with like even sales teams, just going through how to write engaging emails because in the B2B space, well, really a lot of spaces, it just, they're very like just cookie cutter and they're telling everybody
Mhm.
everything kind of right away. There's not a lot of curiosity and not a lot of personality, with email.
Yeah. Oh, everyone like, there's so many misconceptions. First of all, we're probably
Yeah,
not sending enough emails. Like, all of these clients that I got in the first year,
that's a
like,
good
these
point.
people who've been blogging
Yeah,
forever, I'm like, "If you just sent out an email with an old blog post, think of how much traffic you'd get." And they
yeah,
get revenue from traffic and affiliate links, and it's just like, that feels like a no-brainer. Let's repurpose the stuff that people love. I
yeah,
always joke, I'm like, because they would always say, "Well, I wrote that blog post 5 years ago." I'm like, "Well, is it still a wonderful lasagna recipe? No one
yeah,
cares. Like, is it still like the basics of how to budget? No one cares
yeah,
how long ago you wrote it. It's still helpful." So,
yeah.
yeah, and pairing that with the audience research of like, why did people come to this site? What are their
Hmm.
questions? What are they looking for? And how do we just like match that up with either existing content you have or content you can create for your welcome and nurture sequence?
Yeah, that's such good advice. I feel like me like repurposing or just like even like posting about like podcast episode or something I wrote or something old, I can't get out of my head. I'm like, I just like I'm gonna still bombard them and then the unsubscribes will just hurt my feelings. But it's just like I need to focus on I still have a lot of people who like follow me, new
Mhm.
people that have never seen this stuff before, and sometimes people, maybe didn't see that who've been following me for a long time. So
Yeah.
like, it's great advice to email. You're not sending enough emails because sometimes I feel like once a week or like two a week for me is just even too much, just because I feel
Yeah.
like people have had enough of me from like everything
Well,
I'm doing.
and that's where understanding the tech side of email is helpful because like you can always add a link that
Yeah.
says like, "Hey, on Tuesdays I send out content that I've created before you join my email list. If you're not interested in getting that, click here and you'll still get my recent
Yeah.
stuff." Like,
Yeah.
but that's also what kind of makes me as a copywriter, it's interesting because like I know about things like conditional content and segmenting. And so like I kind of like can write the emails initially with this like powerhouse understanding of like we're not going to be sending
Mhm.
stuff to people that they who don't need it. Like this conditional
Yeah.
content only shows up for people who are not on the wait list, like
Yeah.
XYZ. And I think that makes the clients feel awesome too. Like one of my big things is like we just don't need to be sending more noise to people that it doesn't apply to. And that includes the
Yeah.
email itself. Maybe somebody just doesn't need that email or what's in that email too.
Yeah. That's a great call with just segmenting and even putting that like at the top of the email, just to let them know, like
Mhm.
give them that option,
Yeah.
instead of like, what type of content am I going to see? It varies potentially from time to time.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's super smart. I
Yeah.
have a question for you about email, the tech side.
Yeah.
What would you say is the best platform for beginners? And then as you grow, what are some of the other ones that you would recommend?
Yeah. So the two that I recommend the most are ActiveCampaign and ConvertKit. I would say from a
Okay.
usability standpoint, ConvertKit is like so dang easy.
Yeah.
There's like you don't have to build out really a template at all. You can just send the email and it's gonna look fine. Um, I use ConvertKit because it's such a
Okay.
light platform. Like it's robust,
Yeah.
but like I don't have to wait for pages to load. So help me, I do not have the patience for that. Like,
Yeah.
and I tell people, and I get so defensive of people. I'm like, if it's already hard for you to send emails, don't make it harder by picking out a platform where you have to design stuff or spend 15
Yeah.
minutes refining it before it goes out. Just like get the content
Yeah.
out. So, and both of those platforms allow you to tag and like segment your subscribers um,
Yeah.
in a way that's not list based like MailChimp.
Yeah.
What's cool too with ConvertKit, when I first started my second, like not my blog, but now my business, I used to have ConvertKit with my blog. And
Hmm.
then when I started my business, I went with MailerLite because there was no free ConvertKit plan. And MailerLite
Yeah.
is a great option for getting started because you can just like get stuff created. And you get
Yeah.
automations, you get like 200 subscribers, you get groups, which is like their version of tags. But now that
Yeah.
ConvertKit has a free option, what I can generally tell people, I'm like, just get in the habit of sending your live broadcasts. Even if you can't
Yeah.
repurpose it right now, do that for 6 months. Make sure you actually like it. And
Yeah.
then when you pay
Yeah. There
upgrade
you
to the
go.
$29 a month, take all that content you've sent and create it into a nurture sequence. So
Yeah.
then you like are maximizing it as soon as you start
Yeah.
paying for it.
Yeah. No,
So
awesome advice. Yeah, I know I've recommended Miller Lite. Just it always sounds like I say Miller Lite when I say that, but Miller Lite. And yeah, it looks like a simple tool. I've seen resources. I've heard good things
mhm.
about it for people, like you said, just getting some initial content out there, and then you can switch over,
Yeah.
as well. So
One big tip if you're going to start on one platform and migrate over, this is the
yeah.
tech side of me, but like set up a URL redirect from your site for your
Mm,
forms, like for your landing
okay.
pages. So that way, when you update, like change over to ConvertKit or ActiveCampaign, you just have to redirect them on the back end of your site versus having to go like every place you've mentioned your landing page on your site.
Yeah.
You don't have to go
Yeah.
replace that link with a ConvertKit one.
Yeah. For sure. Good. I am curious too, because you said you did Val's incubator, and
Yeah.
she's kind of, well, not kind of, she's known to be such a trusted source for
Hmm.
email copywriting. What was the number one thing, light bulb moment that like you still go back to that's kind of changed how you write emails?
Ooh, how I write emails. Okay, first of all, the audit and the big service thing came from her, but that's more about how I run my business than
Yeah.
how I
Okay.
write emails. I think it was jobs to be done, learning about that as a
Hmm.
methodology for gathering audience research. So like your clients aren't just looking for a course on photography. They're looking for freedom from their day job so that they
Hmm.
can try something creative and make money from it, even if they don't know if they'll go full time. Like what is the actual
Yeah.
heart behind it? So like I
Yeah.
have like a client who has a homeschooling course. So it's not just like I want to be a homeschooler. It's like actually I want to find a way to both connect better with my kids and provide a learning experience that fits with the way that they learn. Like that's
Yeah.
the messaging we're learning, not just surface level like so you're interested in homeschooling. It's like
Yeah.
clearly they're on your website, but like why? What's
Yeah.
the actual why?
Yeah, I love that because it's so big because it just separates you from competitors because majority of your competitors will get caught up on what the product like literally does instead
Mhm.
of like that emotional benefit of what you're offering, which is
Yeah.
like what kind of I would call it, like the emotional benefit of the benefit. Like, yeah, you can be a homeschooler. That's a benefit of taking this course, but what's the emotional side, which like what you mentioned, like
Yeah.
freedom, like spend time more with your kids.
And
Yeah,
confident as a homeschooling parent.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
yeah, because like
exactly.
there's still like that journey from like they're first on your list and you kind of have to capture that like that intrigue of like, this is why you're
Hmm.
here. Great. Stick around and I'm gonna help you develop confidence and see if homeschooling is right for you, etc. And then when we actually
Yeah.
pitch the course, it is like, okay, and at the end of the course, you'll be able to do X, Y, or Z. Like those benefits are still
Yeah.
really helpful, but you just have to know where they belong. And you're not just
Yeah.
selling a course for the sake of selling a course.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, I want to transition to the email subject lines.
Yeah.
That's what we named this episode. Pro tips to writing must open subject lines. What a hook right
Oh,
there.
what a hook. Yeah.
What a hook. But I feel like I should put that in parentheses for every headline I write, just to be sarcastic. But I am just curious, how much time, or you know what? Let's try to phrase this. What's more important, the subject line or the actual body of the email? It's a little broad, but I'm just curious your first reaction to that.
I want to say the body of the email, but nobody's going to open the email if you don't have a subject
Yeah,
line. So
yeah,
that's hard.
it's tough. Yeah, I know, and I just feel like people should spend more time on the subject lines. That's just me personally,
Yeah.
and like, but I tell people write the body of your email, like start with that, and then see what comes up from that to really hook them with the subject line of how
Right.
you can do that. But
Absolutely.
spend time on that subject line and test if you have to.
Yeah.
But yeah,
My process usually looks like writing the email, and then I go in and I write like 10 subject lines at the top
yeah,
and just like all options. So I kind of just like, I don't know, verbally process all of the different options.
yeah,
I've actually had a friend of mine who's a copywriter watch me come up with subject lines once, and she's like, I don't even know what I'm watching right now, because I'm like tweaking the words and I'm adding an arrow and I'm adding an emoji, and they're all like a little bit different, and I'm like, I don't know which one you like best. And so
yeah,
but I'll sometimes like submit my copy to the client with like 8 subject line options, and I go, which one stands out to you?
yeah,
And then if they're
yeah,
like, we don't know, you pick, then I go through and pick.
yeah.
Because a lot of it is just like getting that initial draft out of your head. And sometimes you'll be back,
Hmm.
you'll go back and be like, this makes 0 sense. I don't know why,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, I think like give yourself lots of options. I know some people come up with like 70, and I probably could spend more time doing that too. But
Yeah. No, yeah, with clients, I at least give them like 5, just
yeah,
to choose from, and like pick one and they highlight it. But yeah, it just goes like I write that body of the email. I think sometimes with my newsletter, I'll write this like one subject line to put it
mm-hmm.
ready, just to kind of get an idea, like a theme for what I'm going to talk about,
Yeah,
and then I kind of dissect it of what I'm writing in the body of the email.
yeah.
But do you have rules for writing subject lines?
Some, like, I don't use the word free.
Here.
That's
Oh, okay.
that one's kind of hard. I don't like I've done spam research. I have not. I'm just gonna guess that the word free is gonna get pinged. And so I try and keep that out of
Hmm.
there. I don't necessarily mind putting it in the preview text. That's also like pairing that with your subject. So I have my subject lines and my preview text I call it a copy
Yeah,
doc. And I just will like kind of play around with them. Like one will tee up to the next one,
yeah,
or one will be a little bit, intriguing and vague. And then the preview text is like, join our workshop. Like it'll tell you
yeah,
this is actually what's in the email.
yeah,
So that's kind of a rule. I remember, could have been Val, it could have been sometime from TCC IRL, but the words like this, or like when you're using words like that in the email, people are like, what is this that she mentions? Like, must
yeah,
click and find out.
yeah.
Sometimes I use like arrows, like the sideways
Mm,
carrot of like,
mhm.
continue, click. And I don't know necessarily the effectiveness of that.
Yeah,
I'll use emojis if it feels appropriate. Um,
yeah.
but I guess those are less rules and more just like things I
So
play around
I
with.
just want to clarify, you like using the word this in a subject line?
Yes, I do.
Okay, good. For a minute there, because you start off, don't say free. I was thinking you're saying don't say this. And I'm, oh man, you're like, we agree to disagree, because it's just like I preach that a lot about, like I call it like the what is this formula.
Yeah.
I'm sure maybe somebody else has labeled it that too, but it's such like a curiosity striker, because you hear like they want to find out what is this,
Yeah.
when they open the email.
I,
And I think a lot of people too, like they make the mistake of telling everybody what's in that email, and you can replace the subject with this in the subject line to
yeah.
get them to open it. Because sometimes if they're in a hurry and I see what this is about, I'm like, I don't need to see this right now. But just knowing, all right, I'm a little bit curious, maybe then you'll hit them at the right time where like they need it. Because if you know your audience well enough, you have to feel confident that this can be helpful. But
Yeah.
sometimes, if you're just completely honest of what, or not honest, but like giving them away everything in the subject line, I just feel like they're more likely just to skip that and be like, I don't need
Right.
this right now.
Right. When I heard recently too, Ashlyn Carter said in a video that like there's there's a correlation between like you still want the subject line to be somewhat related to what's in the email. Like you can't have it be so vague. Like your actual like click-through rates will improve in the email because the subject line matches the content, which I completely agree with that. I actually just pulled up my notes that I share with clients. Or like anybody in my audit, this is what I share with them. So free.
Let's do it.
This one's free.
I'll see if I can type it up and put it on the screen to anybody watching it as well.
Using the word you or your. I think in general, it's really easy for us to make subject lines about ourselves. Like, here are 5 things that I know you should be doing. It's like, let's take the I out of that. Give them a reason to open, keeping it somewhat vague to promote interest. Things like this blank has been a crowd favorite for years. Like this recipe or this secret sauce has been a formula for years.
Exactly. Like carrot or like a cake recipe that you should know about, right? And it's like, well, I don't really care about that. But if you say this recipe, maybe then I want carrot cake then. You know, I mean, like, you're not trying to manipulate them, but it's just one goal is to get them to open the email and maybe they at least save it, bookmark it for later.
Yeah. And maybe it's like you mentioned, like a sweet treat that your family will love. It's like, oh, which sweet treat? Is it cookies? Is it ice cream? Is it carrot cake? Hopefully not carrot cake. That's disgusting. Another one is don't uppercase each word. You know, if you think about it, like if you're emailing a friend, you're not capitalizing each word like it's a headline. Keep it.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that one a lot. No title caps in the subject lines.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I see a lot of people who do that. And even like, I feel like even some of the other things like writing headlines like in YouTube, I see every like creator do that. But it seems like lowercase is very trendy as well.
Yeah.
It just feels more natural for some reason.
And you get to pick like your branding style. Like you can capitalize the first word.
Absolutely.
I know some people like to have it all under uppercase, lowercase, the whole way through. Whereas like, I don't know. And you'll notice some people have like a very trendy type of style of subject lines and you don't have to be them. Like Margot Aaron, love her subject lines. I don't know how long she spends on them, probably 30 seconds because she's brilliant. But I'm like, like they're just so stinking vague that I want to open them. But it's like, and they're kind of goofy, but I don't have to be that person. My subject line can say 3 tech hacks that you want to make sure you use. Like, okay, what tech hacks? Or that's a terrible subject line. Not that great.
Well, I'm just saying, like, it goes back to knowing the body of the email. If this is just what it is, and I know my audience, you know, just go ahead and say that. You're not like saying what each tip is in the subject line. One, that would take up way too much space. At least you're giving them something quick, like a quick win to go in there and look at it.
And it's context for what they're going to read. Whereas like Margot's content too, and her audience are more like she's more of an authority in the space. I don't know if you follow Margot. But like, so all of her stuff is more thought pieces. So she could be goofy. She can be whatever. I'm like, whatever, you're the Brene Brown of marketing for me. And so I'll read whatever you put out.
There you go. Yeah.
So another one, I remember I took one of Joanna Weeb's classes and she said that adding the subscriber's name to the subject line doesn't do much. So, but you can always try that if you want. So saying like, this one's for you, Allie, or like use conditional code.
Yeah, there's a ton of stats for personalization. And I would tell clients a lot, like if you have it, like, or if it's even like from like a business side, like even that's just helpful too. Just put the subject line in them. We like hearing our name as humans. It's kind of grabs attention, but it's interesting to hear because I've heard both sides. I personally don't really use it anymore. In mine, I started to when I first was collecting emails. But I'm like testing stuff all the time, even on my landing page. I'm like, is having them put their first and last name just like too much? I'm like, just give me your email and, you know, we'll go from there. Well, and I used to do cold call sales when I worked at the video production company. We actually had an online course that I sold that way versus like a webinar funnel. Very effective. But I would put their name in the subject line of like the follow-up email. So after I called or left a voicemail, I would put that in the sales email. So maybe it performs differently than in like a generalized marketing email where people know they're on a list. Yeah.
So
awesome. Like that.
Yeah. Other things, I had add an emoji if it's your style. And then reduce or eliminate entirely the use of exclamation points.
Ooh, okay. Yeah.
That might be my journalism background. So my advertising degree is through journalism. And they said you get
Yeah.
5 exclamation points for your entire career. But what they didn't know is that you would work in online marketing someday. So I still use plenty of exclamation points. But I think,
Yeah.
that in like all caps, we don't want to feel like we're screaming at people.
Hmm.
I think in general with marketing, if it's not the right time for someone to buy, we don't need to force them. Okay. Like just
Yeah.
as a rule. And so we don't need to add like crazy amounts of urgency. But things like, it's your freebie, get it here. Like, sure, they're getting something
Yeah.
for free.
Yeah.
Let
It's
them.
so interesting. I think it's just, it will stick out in a way, but I don't know if it's good or bad in the inbox if you have
Yeah.
all caps. Um, but yeah, I mean, again, I think, it sounds like so much, but like knowing your audience is kind of what it
Hmm.
is. Like I see so many, like I've worked with entrepreneurs who like take these big courses and then all these subject lines just feel so spammy to me in using these all caps and title caps and like 3 emojis and 3 exclamation points. I just say don't use more than one of them. It just
Yeah.
depends what it is.
Yeah.
Even sometimes it's like what I love to do is like break the third wall. Or if I put something in all caps, it's purposeful, and then I'll put in parentheses, I'm sorry for shouting at you. Like just
I
like that
love
right
that.
away. Just
Yeah.
lower that to not feel, you know, so like, all right, Terry, I get it. Relax.
Well,
But
and I think like the idea of all caps for the whole subject line. Like if you're going to
oh
use
no
it for
way. Yeah.
one word, like,
Yeah.
3
Yeah.
more ways that you can save time when it comes to sending emails. Like, sure,
Yeah.
put more
Yeah.
in all caps.
Absolutely.
But if it's like the sale is ending, I'm like, please lower your voice. Lower
Yes.
your voice.
Exactly. It's like, all right. It's like, all right, Abercrombie. All right, Madewell. Like, come on. However, Madewell's email subject lines are pretty strong.
They're
Like I
pretty
like
great.
follow like a lot of like retailers just to like kind of see what
Yeah.
what they do and like how they differentiate themselves. I feel like you
Yeah.
can just learn a lot. Like I just put good subject line. They're entrepreneurs I follow. Side tip, guys. So just in a content like in like a folder in my email,
Yeah.
just to kind of like even get inspiration from time to time to
Hmm.
see what they're doing. Yeah, because a lot of times that works for me if I ever feel like writer's block, of subject lines, like
Yeah.
formulas to use.
For sure. I think too, something to keep in mind as far as like getting more opens comes from keeping
Yeah.
your list nurtured. So you can
Mm,
have a wonderful subject line, but if you're not emailing them regularly or if they don't remember who you are, then you're not going to expect, like, you can't expect the same kind of engagement. But that's
yeah.
coming from me, like a welcome and nurture sequence copywriter. Like
Yeah.
that's what I've told my clients from the beginning. It's like we're building a relationship with your readers so that when you send future emails, they open them and they click through and they engage and they trust your recommendations. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
So you still have to think about it in the whole context of the marketing piece
Yeah.
of relationship
And
with your
that's
readers.
and I'm sure you can agree to this is if you are like opting in, having people opt into your email, whether it's from a freebie, you have a link on your like a link in your Twitter bio, like
Hmm.
having a welcome series or more than one, I think is essential just to keep that attention because you have their attention now. They're more likely to keep opening and following
Hmm.
along. But I'm curious too, Allie, of what you think is your recommendation for a welcome series of how many emails and
Hmm.
how it's spread out? Because I get this
Yeah.
question all the time
Love
and
it.
I
This
hear
is my
different things.
favorite. This is what I work. This is what
Yes.
I do every day. So
Yeah.
I recommend anywhere from 3 to 5 emails. If you're just
Okay.
starting out, just do one. It's fine. Like you don't have
Yeah.
to understand how you're going to segment your audience or what your soapbox is or anything like that.
Yeah.
I'd rather you have one and then you start sending emails regularly and you can build on more in the future. Um,
Yeah.
I say you can't build a castle in a day. So, Amy
There you
Porterfield
go.
started somewhere too. But
Yeah.
yeah, in those first 3 to 5 emails, I usually start off. Well, what I like about the welcome sequence, and I separate it from the nurture sequence because the goal is that when someone completes the welcome sequence, you can pivot them towards like a webinar promotion, and then eventually they
Hmm.
get the nurture sequence. Or if you don't want to do that anymore, you just pivot them towards the nurture sequence when they're done. So it's kind of this like you get a little bit more flexibility than having them all in one giant automation.
Yeah.
Um, with the welcome sequence, what has been really awesome for my clients is like it really helps you define your brand. So no matter where people are
Mm.
coming in from, whether they've heard you on a podcast, they followed you on Twitter, or they download one of your freebies, they're getting this like really concise, clear understanding of who you are. And I
Yeah.
don't say this to be a Debbie Downer, but like there are a million food bloggers. Like I'm
Hmm.
making that number up, but there are so many. So like what is
Yeah.
about your food blog that they should stick around and come back? Is it because it's vegan baking? Is it because you do healthy, quick meals for large families? Like You might feel like that's just normal. State the obvious, and tell them like, you came here looking for clean meals that don't take hours and hours to prepare that your kids will actually like. Great. That's what we have here. And I'm going to be sending you recipes soon. In the meantime, here's a quick checklist of like what I keep in my freezer. Enjoy, and like that just reinforces who you are as a brand and still helps them feel great about that connection. But if you don't have that, then they just don't hear from you until you release another blog post or something.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like if you have a freebie, something like that, I almost guarantee you have other stuff to talk about, like, and to like introduce yourself and give them some other type of word of the century value in marketing. Just give them something else. Like, you have other content, I imagine, or if like think about like if you have a grocery checklist that you follow all the time, your go-to ingredients for XYZ, just put that in there.
Like, I have a client who's an Italian food blogger, and I'm like, how many of her ingredients we don't have in our pantry in America? So one of the emails is like, hey, to get the most out of everything I'm going to be sending you, like, here are the ingredients, here's what they're for, here's some recipes with them, just like shower them with, a housewarming gift, if you will. It's like, welcome. If you're going to get the most out of this, you're going to need a few of these things. So,
well, I love how you just even said it, like, sorry, just like how you said, like,
you're good.
Things that you don't typically have in your pantry. Like, that's just a great hook right there. It's like, I bet you don't have these ingredients in your pantry, like these must-have ingredients in your pantry. I feel like that would just be like, well, what if I do? You know what I mean? But like, it's still just exciting to see it. So yeah, I like that. Sorry,
and
what were you gonna say?
Like in those 3 to 5 emails, that's also where you'd want to segment your list too. So if you have people who are like, so like Pinch of Yum was one of my first food blogging clients. Maybe they were the first. And like, so we just ask the subscriber, are you new to home cooking? Or are you pretty advanced? And so if they're new, we send them through like a 5 email sequence that's just like, here are some back pocket recipes. Here are some ingredients you need. Here are like 5 tools, like get a cutting board, get a decent knife, like these things. Here's how to like chop up garlic, or whatnot.
That's cool. It's a great idea.
The advanced people know how to do it, but for the people who are brand new, who we want them to have fun cooking, they need to know these skills. And then everybody else goes through a more advanced sequence with like more advanced tools and recipes.
And you're building so much trust in your brand, like with that. And like, and if they leave you, like, again, it will hurt your feelings a little bit if they unsubscribe because maybe they just got what they came for right away. But if they stick around, I mean, that's the people you want in your corner eventually. Whatever like your goal is at the end of this, like if to sell like a cooking course or like private classes, something like that, those are the type of people who are more likely going to buy, the people who are following along. And like, but you creating that content gets to build that trust and that likability factor too with yourself.
Right. And like by making it really clear who you are and who you serve in those first few emails, if people unsubscribe, it's because you made it really clear who you serve and who you don't. Like if it's not for them, they're welcome to leave. I think something else that's important just to keep in mind, I think this is with any brand, but especially you see it in email marketing because people unsubscribe and it hurts your feelings. But there's a time and a season for people to be in your little universe. And there's a time for them to leave. Like there are phenomenal bloggers I followed for 2 years and eventually just had to unsubscribe. I'm like, sorry, Courtney, I'm kind of past all this. Thanks for helping me get to where I am with my blog. So like there were no hurt feelings. She didn't have any advanced courses at that time. And I like felt bad. I was like, all I've done is consume your stuff. And I've paid you nothing. Like I've watched all of your YouTube videos and I unsubscribed. But like, that doesn't mean people didn't find value on your list while they were there. Just like, it's okay to let them go.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Oh man, great advice. And then to the second part of that question, was the spreading it out, the time frame. Like, are you more 24 hours person, spreading that out even a little bit more? And then also I see sidebar too, we have a couple people watching live. So if you guys have questions, your questions will help the audio listeners as well. So feel free to say hi and ask any question. But yeah, Allea, I'm curious, what's kind of your time sequence there?
I probably send the first 3 to 5 emails in the first 7 or 8 days.
Okay.
So the first email, you can send it out immediately or an hour later, or you can try sending it out a day later. Kind of depends to where they're coming from. So if it's your very first sequence, great. If you have like an email challenge leading into it, maybe it's got a delay. So, and then the next, I would say like 3 straight days, like emails 1, 2, and 3 can be 3 days in a row. And then you can start spacing it out 2 or 3 days apart, depending on how many.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
Do you ever like open a loop to the next email? Because I do this a lot with clients where like
Oh
I'll say
yeah.
in the PS, hey, look out for this subject tomorrow. I like get them kind of primed like to keep looking for my
Yeah.
emails.
Absolutely. So I'm trying to think of a client project where I just did this. Um, Sometimes it's like, I have clients who work a lot in like weight loss and healthy eating. And so it's like, hey,
Yeah.
stay tuned for tomorrow for like the how I got here, after
Hmm.
40 failed attempts at dieting between
Yeah.
and you're like, okay, I'll open. And then, that
Yeah.
next email we tell their story. And it's like, see, you're not
Yeah.
alone. I'm not just giving you advice I didn't follow. And
No.
I want to say there was something like that. There's also like, yeah, in tomorrow's email, I'm going to give you like the 3 mistakes most homeschooling parents make.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I
teasing
think
that out is super
I think
helpful.
like a lot of people fail to do that or even put that in the PS. Like let them. I'm just personally a fan of set the expectations when I'm doing for a client or if I subscribe to a list.
Hmm.
It's like if you're going to tell me something tomorrow, it's like at least I'll know to look out for it. But again,
Right.
like what to expect. You're going to email me twice a week, twice a month. Like,
Hmm.
I just did a lead magnet workshop with a few other creators, and we went through a welcome series, and I stuck it to 3 emails, and it was a lot of it was like that. Like, guys, open the loop to that next email, and if you have a hard sell, kind of don't let them know I'm going to sell you something. But again, like those previews though, just keep them interested in guiding
Hmm.
along where they've already got to know you now, and then if you do like a hard sell for like an offer that's more paid, you know your chances will increase because you kind of let them know what to expect and you're building that trust.
Absolutely. I even include like a teaser for what's coming on the new, like by being on the email list in the opt-in confirmation email. So like the
Oh, okay.
incentive email where it's like, hey, click here to join the list. And then it's like, more coming. You're going to be getting these kind of updates, this and this. Like, I would
Yeah.
rather over communicate that because it also communicates value. You're not just like, I'm going to send you blog posts. It's like, I'm going to send you the latest recipes from Clean and Delicious, or
Like
you're going
it.
to get the latest how-to videos from, that go up on YouTube so then you feel
Hmm.
more confident in the kitchen or whatnot. Like that's just another place to really wow people, get them excited. Have you
Yeah.
ever read what is it? How to Write Copy That Sells? I had to look at my bookshelf.
I've not read it, but I definitely know of it.
I'll pull it over here. So there's a whole chapter just on bullet points, and they're like way more powerful than people give them credit for. So highly recommend. It's a super thin book.
Is that Ray Edwards?
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I'm
yeah.
on his
But
list a lot.
I didn't know who he was. I don't know him outside of this book, to be
I
honest.
forget how I got connected or how I found out about him. Maybe through Amy Porterfield. I feel like there's a lot of like copywriters, marketers for like beginner freelance copywriters who you get kind of invested in early. I feel like Amy Porterfield is definitely one of them. You follow
Yeah,
along. She's got the SEO rankings for sure.
yes, she
Um,
does.
but yeah, great advice with the welcome series and kind of again, everybody listening, like whether you own a business, whether you're writing for clients, tease those things like whether it's in the PS. I love your idea of doing it in the opt-in page as well, just like
Hmm.
setting those expectations. Like
Yeah,
for example, like my welcome email for my newsletter. I let them know ahead of time, of what to expect, moving forward after they signed up for that list.
oh yeah. Is it like how
Yeah.
many that I have that on my like opt-in questionnaire for my clients. Like
Hmm.
how many times are you posting to YouTube? How many times are you posting the blog? And can we communicate that to the client or to the client to the subscriber in a way that
Yeah.
doesn't overwhelm them, but just like, hey, here's what you can expect. It's
Yeah.
great.
Absolutely.
Super helpful.
I'm curious. I want to end on a final question. Put you on the spot a little bit. If I ask you what's one of your favorite email subject lines you wrote for yourself, for your client, and why it worked, what comes to mind?
I kind of want to open up my ConvertKit and look. There's one
Yeah.
about and like I'm kind of dorky, so I
It
love
could be
stuff like
super,
this.
like, even if it has like your highest rate, like
Well, let
as
me
you look
see.
up, I just know, like, for example, one of mine is freelancers wanted. It had like my highest open rate and conversion rate. And it was to do a webinar about like sales and closing for freelance writers. One, it was in the new year, so it was kind of like setting people up. They were motivated. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I just tell a lot of clients, and preaching about call out your audience in the subject line. Just say,
Yeah.
hey, webinar about freelancing. It's just like call them out. Are they like? Am I talking to freelancers? It's like, and then freelancers wanted. It's
Yes.
just kind of a common phrase, and it just I obviously got people to open, and then I had a lot of signups for the webinar. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
just call them out.
the very first email that people get on my welcome sequence is email marketing. Email marketing is my happy place. Yourself, and then a little emoji doing this like little flip. So,
Yeah.
and that's got like a 63% open rate. So I'm going to call that a win.
Yeah, there you go.
But that, yeah, it is kind of calling them out. And then like email marketing is the real MVP. And so I also like to use the word email a lot in my subject lines and maybe that's like
Yeah.
a insecurity, but I'm like, I don't expect that anyone knows that I focus on email.
Yeah.
Like, and that's also like, I basically talk about the same 3 things over and over and over again, like the technical side of email, what to include in emails, like the value of email. And I just repeat the heck out of that because I want to be known for that. While we're talking about that, kind of what we talked about earlier too. Have you read Book Yourself Solid? That idea of niching down. You don't have to read the whole thing. Just read, like, listen to the first 2 chapters on Hoopla.
Okay.
And you're good. I did that once while walking on a treadmill, and I took notes because that's the kind of person I am at the gym.
Yeah, I like doing that too.
But it's all about like how do you really own your niche, and then you can expand in the future. So just because like I'm working with bloggers now doesn't mean I won't work with SaaS in the future. My personality means I probably won't work with SaaS in the future. But like,
well, I'll tell you what, I feel like your personality is perfect for SaaS, to be honest, just because they need personality infused a lot. I think a lot of them get caught up about talking about themselves, or just like, I just want them to click this link, so let's get to it. But
or being professional.
Come on, you're humans. At the end of the day, like tap into like their desires and needs instead of yours. Really, at the end of the day. Yeah. Awesome. Fascinating. Well, cool. Well, I like to end we like to end the Copy Corner podcast on this question. Something fairly new that we're doing. Another bring it back. Why is copywriting so important to business? You could reference it to yours, or just have a mini TED Talk right now.
Well, this is kind of my soapbox, but like I tell people all the time, like it's not fair that the people who want and would benefit from your content don't know about it. Like you kind of have to get over it and share your message, even if you're not like 100% sure you've written it the right way. If the subject line isn't perfect, it's like copywriting, whether it's good or bad, is still communicating. So if you're not communicating that you have something to the people who would want it, it's not doing them a service, and it's doing a disservice for you. So wow. That's my soapbox.
Excellent answer. I love it. Oh man, Allie, this was so much fun. I like how, we were talking in the beginning. Allie's like, how long do we usually do these? And I'm like, well, they're usually 10 minutes or less when we're just picking a topic, and interviews could be anywhere between 30 minutes, but we're approaching 50. But I have to say, this went by fast. I know that's cliche as hell, but I feel like we covered a lot in those last 25 minutes. I think could be very helpful for, anybody getting into email copywriting, getting some confidence in freelancer, to wrap you how to package your services. Some really great stuff. So thank you for sharing all your knowledge and experience today. This is great.
Yeah.
And then let everybody know where they can follow you. Talk about your email list, anything that you like to promote.
Yeah, so if you visit duet.co, I have a resources page there, and there's a bunch of freebies and ways you can get on my email list. That's the best way to hear from me. It's the most consistent way to hear from me. I'm not much of an Instagram gal, but you can also find me over there at Grummert. And so, but if you join my email list and you have any questions to anything I send over, just reply back and I'll be the one to answer.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for tuning into this episode of the Copy Corner with Terry and Allie today. Dan will be back occasionally, but we're going to be having some more guest hosts with myself, on the live stream and on the podcast. So as always, thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.